When scientists retrieved a tracking device from the depths of the Southern Ocean, they found something inside that would change everything we thought we knew about the ocean's hierarchy. A perfectly healthy great white shark had vanished without a trace, and the data it left behind revealed a predator so powerful, so massive, that it hunted the ocean's most feared killer like it was nothing more than prey. Welcome to Infinite Findings, where we explore the world's greatest unsolved mysteries and the discoveries that reshape our understanding of nature. This is the story of what ate the apex predator. In 2003, marine biologists working off the coasts of South Australia embarked on what seemed like a routine project. They were monitoring great white shark populations, gathering data that would help conservation efforts and expand our knowledge of these creatures. They captured a 9-foot female, a full-grown predator at roughly 500 pounds, and attached a sophisticated tracking instrument to her dorsal fin. It wasn't a real-time transmitter. Instead, it was a data logger, a device designed to record depth, temperature, light exposure, and movement patterns before eventually detaching and floating to the surface, where scientists could recover it and analyze months of continuous information. 4 months of travel, 4 months of hunting, diving, and surviving in one of Earth's most dangerous environments. The research team expected to retrieve routine data. They anticipated patterns of behavior they'd already documented dozens of times before. Hunting dives, temperature fluctuations, the shark's typical range and territorial movements. Then everything changed. What they found on that data recorder defied explanation, and what started as a standard marine biology project became something far more profound. Because what that recovered instrument revealed was not just unusual, it was impossible. At least, that's what every textbook said. Before we explore what happened to that shark, you need to understand what a great white actually is. Most people know they're dangerous, but truly comprehending the biological reality of these animals means understanding something deeper, something more troubling. Great whites are not simply large fish with impressive teeth. They are the result of millions of years of evolutionary perfection. Some specimens can exceed 20 feet in length and weigh over 5,000 pounds. Their sensory systems operate at levels that seem almost supernatural. They can detect a single drop of blood dispersed across an entire swimming pool of water. They sense electrical fields generated by heartbeats through solid sand. They accelerate to speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour in explosive bursts that would disintegrate most living creatures. Their teeth exist in an endless rotation. When one erodes or breaks, another slides forward from the back of their jaw to replace it. Lifetime tool replacement. Nature's design for a predator that never stops hunting, never needs maintenance, simply needs to keep moving forward. But here's the aspect that really matters. The thing that researchers had universally accepted as absolute truth. Great white sharks sit at the absolute pinnacle of ocean life. Nothing hunts them. Nothing threatens them. They are apex predators in the most technical, most definitive sense of that term. The food chain terminates with them. That's where it stops. Except on that day in 2003, it didn't. Let me walk you through the numbers on that data tag, because understanding the mathematics of what happened makes the story even more disturbing. The first striking reading was depth. The tag descended to nearly 2,000 feet in mere minutes. Rapid, uncontrolled descent. This matters significantly because great white sharks are not deep water creatures. They evolved as hunters in coastal shallows and the sunlit surface waters where their prey congregates. They operate within roughly the top 1,000 feet of the ocean. That's their world, their hunting grounds, their realm. An abrupt plunge to 2,000 feet? That's not normal. That's not the shark diving of its own volition. When data shows that kind of violent depth change compressed into such a short time frame, there's only one reasonable interpretation. The shark wasn't swimming down. Something was pulling it down. Something powerful enough to descend 2,000 feet quickly and efficiently as though it were nothing. But the depth reading was just the beginning. The second number was temperature. And this is where the story transforms from strange into absolutely inexplicable. At 2,000 feet beneath the waters of southern Australia, the ocean is brutally cold. Not invigorating, not refreshing, genuinely frigid. The water temperature at that depth in that region hovers between 40 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It's dark. It's pressurized. It's the kind of environment that would stop most life from functioning. If that tag had simply detached and sunk on its own, the temperature reading should have stayed cold. If the shark had died and the tag drifted with the carcass, the reading would remain consistent with the surrounding water. Steady, cold, unchanged. Instead, the instruments recorded something that made the scientists who reviewed them question whether the equipment was malfunctioning. The temperature spiked to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's not the disturbing part. The temperature didn't briefly spike and then return to normal. It didn't fluctuate. It held stable at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 2,000 feet below the ocean's surface, in water that should have been 40 degrees. The researchers stared at those numbers and realized what they were actually documenting. There's only one scenario in which you record sustained warmth at extreme depth in an otherwise freezing environment. The tag wasn't in the ocean anymore. It was inside something alive, something warm-blooded, something that had consumed the shark entirely and was now carrying it deeper, down to depths where great whites simply do not go. The lead researcher that day, a scientist named Rachel Donahue, would later describe viewing those readings as one of the most disturbing moments of her entire career. Not because the data was incomprehensible. Scientists thrive on the incomprehensible. It was what the data actually meant that shook her to her core. A 9-foot, 500-pound apex predator had been eaten, consumed whole by something else. Something larger, something more powerful. And nobody on the surface of the ocean witnessed it. No cameras captured it. No fishing vessel happened by. No whale watcher took photographs. The largest wilderness on Earth had kept this secret perfectly. Now came the crucial question. What was large and powerful enough to accomplish this? Scientists began analyzing the movement patterns recorded before the shark's disappearance. They looked for behavioral clues. They studied the trajectory and the speed of descent. They compared the data against documented behavior of species known to inhabit those waters. And slowly, a disturbing picture emerged. There were very few creatures on Earth large enough to swallow a 9-foot great white shark. There were even fewer willing to descend to 2,000 feet while carrying a half-ton meal. The evidence pointed toward a specific culprit, a massive adult female, probably exceeding 18 feet in length. The conclusion that became inescapable was that another great white shark, a much larger great white shark, had killed and consumed this one. In other words, one apex predator had preyed upon another apex predator. This wasn't just unusual. In the framework of everything marine biology had constructed about ocean hierarchy, this was revolutionary. Researchers had observed orcas harassing great whites in specific locations. There were rare documented conflicts between large sharks, but outright predation? One great white actively hunting, killing, and consuming another? That existed entirely outside their models. It violated fundamental assumptions about how ocean ecosystems function. Yet the data was undeniable. Scientists began revisiting old research files. They combed through historical observations and fishing reports. They examined anecdotal accounts from fishermen and mariners that had been largely dismissed or forgotten. And they discovered something startling. There were other incidents, other hints, other moments where large sharks had disappeared without explanation, only to be later understood through this lens. The ocean had been keeping this secret, not for decades, but possibly for centuries. We simply hadn't been listening. What makes this revelation so philosophically unsettling is what it means for everything we thought we understood about ocean ecosystems. The food chain we drew, with the great white positioned at the very top and everything else arranged neatly below, was incomplete, possibly fundamentally wrong. If great white sharks could be prey, then the food chain didn't end where we assumed it did. The apex wasn't fixed at a specific level. It was dynamic, size-dependent, a matter of who was larger and hungrier in any particular confrontation. This changes conservation biology in ways most people don't even recognize. Great white shark protection strategies around the world are built on population models that assume human activity. Fishing, habitat destruction, finning represents the primary mortality threat. Intraspecies predation was never factored in. It was never considered a significant population control mechanism, but if large females regularly prey upon smaller great whites, then the population dynamics are far more complex than current models capture. Survival rate projections could be dramatically off. Recovery timelines might require complete revision. Conservation strategies that seemed sound might need fundamental restructuring. There's also the concept of what scientists call trophic cascades. When the apex predator's behavior shifts, it creates ripple effects down through every level of the ecosystem below. We already know that great white presence affects the behavior and distribution of seals, sea lions, and smaller shark species. If large great whites are now actively removing smaller individuals from the population, the ecological consequences could be enormous and completely unaccounted for in existing ecosystem models. But perhaps the most unsettling implication is the one that questions everything we think we understand about what lives in the deep ocean. We've used the great white shark as our reference point for ocean apex predation. When we think about the top of the food chain in the sea, we think of the great white. It's the benchmark, the ceiling of predatory power. Yet the 2003 incident proved that ceiling doesn't exist where we thought it did, which raises a question that keeps marine biologists awake at night. Are there other apex predators in the ocean that are themselves prey? Are there massive creatures living in the deep, creatures we've never formally documented, that are preying upon animals we already consider apex species? Animals so rare, so deep-dwelling, so specialized in their behavior that we've simply never encountered them? The honest answer, based on everything we've learned, is that we genuinely don't know. And not knowing is a terrifying position to occupy when we're making decisions that affect entire ecosystems. The reason this behavior remained hidden for so long involves several sobering truths about marine science and the ocean itself. First is geography. The ocean is incomprehensibly vast. The Pacific Ocean alone covers 60 million square miles. All the world's oceans combined cover 139 million square miles of surface. Of that immense area, we have meaningfully explored roughly 5%, not studied in detail. Just explored, passed through with instruments. The deep pelagic zone, below 1,000 feet, might as well be another planet for all we can actually observe. Second is the limitation of tagging studies. There are estimates of somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 great white sharks remaining in all the world's oceans. The total number ever successfully tagged with functioning data recorders? A fraction of that. We're drawing sweeping conclusions about an entire species based on observations of an incredibly small sample. It's like trying to understand African elephants by exclusively studying the young calves that wander near the park's perimeter. Third is size bias. When researchers tag great whites, they work in coastal zones where the sharks come close enough to capture. The animals available for tagging in these environments tend to be younger, smaller individuals. The truly massive females, the specimens over 20 feet long that may be responsible for the predation we're discussing, spend most of their time in the deep open ocean. They're simply not where the researchers are. They're not close to shore where nets can reach them. They're not in the places where scientists set their equipment. Put all of this together, and you get a profound problem in marine science. The most ecologically significant behavior of one of the ocean's most studied species has remained completely invisible. Not because it's rare, but because we weren't in the right location with the right equipment at the right moment, looking in the right direction. The ocean is better at keeping secrets than we are at discovering them. Now, here's what disturbs me most about this entire incident. Researchers studying the tag data and the movement patterns that emerged in subsequent years informally named the predator. They called her the deep blue candidate. The reference was to Deep Blue, the largest great white shark ever reliably filmed by humans. A female estimated at roughly 20 feet in length, documented off the coast of Mexico in 2013. Whether the shark responsible for the 2003 predation event and Deep Blue are the same animal, nobody can say with absolute certainty. The ocean doesn't provide easy confirmations about its residents, but I think that uncertainty is actually the most important aspect of this story, because it reflects how we relate to the ocean as a whole. We've mapped it, we've named it, we've divided it into zones and biomes and ecological categories. We've assigned Latin names to everything in it and placed each creature on a chart. We look at our charts and we feel like we know what's in the water. We don't. The 2003 disappearance of that tagged great white shark stands as a reminder that the largest wilderness remaining on Earth is fundamentally unknown. That data recorder that washed ashore was like a message in a bottle, a transmission from the depths. It said something very simple. Something is down there that you don't know exists. Something larger than your models predicted. Something that hunts your apex predators and descends to depths you thought were barren. The great white shark spent 11 million years becoming the ocean's most formidable predator. It perfected every aspect of predatory efficiency. And somewhere in those dark, frigid waters of Australia, something looked at it and saw lunch. Think about that for a moment. Let it settle in. The ocean is not the place we believed it was. The food chain doesn't terminate where we drew our line. And the next data recorder that washes ashore might reveal something even more difficult for us to comprehend than this one did. Whatever is down there, whatever hunts in those depths, it's not waiting for us to understand it. It's not concerned with human curiosity or scientific models. It's simply living its life in the darkness, doing what it's always done, long before we started watching, and long after we stop. That's the truth about what ate the great white shark, and I genuinely believe it's only the beginning of what we're going to discover about the ocean's true hierarchy. If this story fascinated you and made you question what else is hiding beneath those waves, please like this video and subscribe to Infinite Findings for more investigations into the mysteries our planet still refuses to reveal. Leave a comment telling us which ocean mystery haunts you most. What creature or phenomenon do you think the deep ocean is still hiding from us? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next discovery.